Midnight Club? I wonder because it just one day just disappeared and stopped making games. What happened to Midnight Club by RoboKast? Oh yeah, wait. Uh, history. I want to check out if this guy has more videos.
I love cos.
Okay. So it's basically one video on that, and then okay, that's his intro. I'll subscribe. I want to see more of his stuff, more of his game.
If
Okay,
you grew up
back to
playing
this.
racing games in the 2000s, there's a good chance you know what Midnight Club is. And if you
Mm,
do, you probably remember it fondly. There's something special about ripping through a city at night playing one.
I'll be honest. I've never played in that club. I really need to play it. Like, yeah, I think firstly, I need to get like more storage so that I don't have to bother downloading and deleting stuff constantly because that has been a problem. But like once I get it, I'm just going to load. I'm going to like download a bunch of old games. Of course, legally, I'll legally get them. But yeah, I've been wanting to as I said before, the older Need for Speed games. We're going to get those. We're going to get Midnight Club, a bunch of other racing games. Also want to try out Black Rock Shooter. If anyone remembers the anime, they also made a game. I want to play that. And a bunch of other old games like Ghost in the Shell, only all those stuff. That thing's gonna be packed. Gonna need like a 4 terabyte.
One of the best video game soundtracks of all time, while trying not to wake up your parents as you scream in agony every time you fail the same time trial over and over again. At its peak, the Midnight Club franchise was one of the best selling racing series in gaming. The final entry moved nearly 5 million copies across PS3 and Xbox 360, making it
Mm,
Rockstar's second highest moneymaker at the time. It had a cult following, a reputation for intense street racing action, and an open world formula that was ahead of its time. And then, nothing. No sequel, no reboot, no spiritual
yeah,
successor.
it just went
Just a
dark.
complete silence.
Hold on. Okay, I'm good.
For well over 15 years. You would think that a franchise that was printing money for one of the biggest publishers on Earth would get the royal treatment. Instead, the studio
Yeah.
behind it got gutted and the series was left for dead. So, what
Oh,
happened?
come on.
How
Why?
did Midnight Club, one of the most underrated racing franchises in gaming history, die? This is gonna be a rough one, boys. The story of Midnight Club begins with a small animation studio called Angel Studios, founded by Diego Angel in January of 1984. They weren't a game developer, they made computer animations for films and music videos, and they were good at
Mm,
it. They worked on visual effects for The Lawnmower Man in 1992, which became a surprise box office hit, and they won an MTV award for their FX work on a Peter Gabriel music video in 1994. But more importantly, the company
take note, right? Take notes. It was a long time ago. So yeah, these graphics are pretty terrible to take. It reminds me of what's that movie called? Shark Boy and Lava Girl. Yeah, was that the name of it? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Shark Boy and Lava Girl. A great movie. Even though the CGI was so bad, I love those movies.
effects work on a Peter Gabriel music video in 1994. But more importantly, the company culture was something special. Vacation time was plentiful, and it was common for Diego to hand out tequila to employees on what they called Sippy Whippy Fridays. That kind of environment would become important to remember later because things would change dramatically. Angel Studios made the jump to games in 1993 after landing a partnership with Nintendo.
Mm,
Their first full title was Major League Baseball featuring Ken Griffey Jr. in 1998. Yes, that was the real name. It was a solid start, but it was their next project that would put them on the radar for the company that would change their trajectory forever. Midtown Madness released on May 18th, 1999 for PC, and it was notable for being an open world racing game set in real world locations. At a time when most racing games stuck to closed circuits and predefined tracks, this one turned the streets of Chicago into your personal playground. Cops would chase you
Mm,
while you raced around, your vehicle could take damage and eventually get totaled, and there were a bunch of licensed vehicles, including the Volkswagen Beetle. The game shipped
looks
with four
fun.
modes: Cruise, Blitz, Checkpoint, and Circuit, giving players a surprisingly varied experience for the era. It reviewed well, and by April of 2000, it had already sold over 100,000 copies. And that success caught the attention of a publisher that was quickly becoming one of the most ambitious names in the industry: Rockstar
Rockstar.
Games. Rockstar saw what Angel Studios had pulled off with Midtown Madness and recognized that this team had cracked something special with open world racing. So the two companies struck up a partnership. Rockstar would publish, Angel Studios would develop, and together they'd take that open world racing formula and push it further than a PC game ever could onto the hottest new console on the market, the PlayStation 2. The result of that
Mm,
partnership was Midnight Club Street Racing, which launched on October 26, 2000 as a launch title for the PS2. This was effectively a spiritual sequel to Midtown Madness, but refined for consoles and given a much grittier street racing identity. The premise was straightforward. You start career mode with a crummy taxicab and work your way up by winning races against opponents on the streets of New York and London. Races used a checkpoint system, sometimes against a single opponent and sometimes against a full field. Cops would show up and chase you, your car took damage from collisions, and if you took too much punishment, it was game over. There were destructible elements scattered around the maps, similar to Crazy Taxi. Arcade mode rounded things out with
fun
four
game.
sub-modes: Cruise, Head-to-Head, Waypoint, and Capture the Flag, plus local multiplayer support. While nowhere near the first open-world racing game ever made, Midnight Club was the first to bring that concept to a mainstream audience in a meaningful way. Reviews were a bit all over the place, ranging from a couple of 5 out of 10s to multiple 8 out of 10s. Some critics praised it for shaking up the arcade racing formula, while others felt that the game was repetitive and lacked enough stage variety. Despite the
Mm,
mixed reception, it still won IGN's Racing Game of 2000 award, and by December of that year, it was the fifth best selling PS2 game on the market. Over its lifetime, the game generated
nice.
$43 million in revenue on 2.5 million units sold. Not bad for a launch title from a studio that had only been making games for a couple of years. What's wild is that Midnight Club Street Racing wasn't even Angel Studios' only PS2 launch title. On the exact same day, October 26, 2000, they also released Smuggler's Run through Rockstar. That game sold
Mm,
120,000 copies by the end of the year and landed as the ninth best-selling title of 2000. A sequel
wow.
followed in October of 2001 that
So
reviewed
though in
even
the top
better,
10 with
though
two
we don't
games.
have exact sales figures for that one. Releasing two launch titles simultaneously for the PS2 was a serious flex, and it helped
Yeah.
Angel Studios sharpen their skills in the racing and open world space while building a much stronger relationship with Rockstar. That relationship turned permanent in 2003 when Rockstar's parent company, Take-Two Interactive, acquired Angel Studios and rebranded them as Rockstar San Diego. On paper, this
Mm,
sounds like great news. Angel
yeah,
Studios
but it
had
can be a
proven that they could
problem.
ship quality titles, and now they had the financial back.
Yeah, as we know, the foreshadowing gonna get shut down. That's the problem of being acquired, bro. The big wigs do yeah, ton of bad stuff.
Of one of the biggest names in gaming. But behind the scenes, the acquisition came with a very different reality. According to a detailed report from Polygon, Rockstar wasn't fully convinced that buying Angel Studios was a good idea. So there was an unspoken understanding within the studio that the
Mm,
San Diego team had to constantly prove their worth. Gone were the days of sippy whippy
wow.
Fridays and a relaxed work environment. How unfortunate. Almost overnight, the culture shifted to one of extreme crunch. Their first major test under the Rockstar banner.
If they didn't think it was worth it, especially in the beginning, why did they purchase them in the first place, bro? Come on.
The culture shifted to one of extreme crunch. Their first major test under the Rockstar banner was a game codenamed Agent, an open world espionage title with a James Bond vibe. Rockstar's headquarters in New York provided the concept and gave San Diego very little time to make it work. As one former artist put it, the idea was,
Mm, I was going to say why they choose a game like that instead of continuing with the racing games. But yeah, And that answered my question. Basically, Rockstar came up with the idea and then told them, "Hey, go make the game." Bro, my model is glitching out constantly today. Like, what the fuck is happening?
No matter what, you do not go home until it's time to sleep. Employees were sent
Ah,
to Washington, D.C. and Cairo to take reference photos for the game and actually got arrested during the trip. They were eventually released, but it piled on even more
bruh.
stress to an already pressured team. Things spiraled even further when the game's producer, Louis Gigliotti, left the company along with 11 other team leads to form Concrete Games. New leads took over, but they struggled to grasp the creative vision that the
Never heard
Hauser
of
brothers
Concrete
at
Games.
Rockstar wanted. After years of work, all San Diego had to show for Agent was an engine. The project was effectively shelved in favor of what would become Red Dead Redemption, which, by the way, is the
Mm,
first video game that I ever 100%ed and probably to this day one of my favorite video game stories ever. So I actually just launched a video game story recap channel, and there's a video live right now summarizing the Red Dead Redemption story. So if you want to check that out, and if you're looking for some chill story recap videos to watch while you fall asleep or eat food or something, you could find a link in the description below. Anyways, to top all of this off, Rockstar was hit with a $2.75 million lawsuit from former employees for unpaid overtime that stretched all the way back to the Angel Studios contract days. They settled for
mm,
the full amount in November of 2008. This is the environment that the Midnight Club sequels were being made in. But despite all of this
insane.
chaos, the games themselves kept getting better. So, Midnight Club 2 was the first game released under the Rockstar San Diego name, and it was a significant step up from the original. The game took players across 3 new cities: Tokyo, Los Angeles, and Paris. Motorcycles were introduced for the first time, the maps were bigger than anything in the first game, and the production
Mm.
values were noticeably higher. The AI was also more unpredictable and aggressive, to the point where Midnight Club 2 is honestly still one of the most difficult racing games you can play today. The game didn't try to
Oh,
be a realistic
really?
driving simulator. It leaned into the fun factor with new moves like two-wheel driving and burnouts that you could unlock as you
What?
progressed. Career mode was mostly the same
Bro,
structure as before, just more polished and longer, with a lot more freedom in how you reached checkpoints. There were tons of potential routes through each race, some way better than others, which added a layer of strategy that the first game didn't really have. Arcade mode got a major addition in circuit mode, which offered your standard multi-lap races. Beating all of them was required to unlock the final career race, which gave players a reason to actually engage with every part of the game. The mode even supported online play through Xbox Live, which was a massive deal at the time. Critics
mm.
were largely positive, with most mainstream outlets enjoying the game, except for Edge, who gave it a lower score for some reason, and Playboy magazine, who apparently reviewed it
Huh?
too. I'm not joking. According to
Playboy
Metacritic,
of all
Playboy
things.
reviewed 131 games in the early
Oh,
2000s, and Midnight Club 2 was one of them. I have no idea why. Regardless, the game sold 1.78 million copies, firmly establishing the franchise as a legitimate racing series and proving that there was a real audience for what Rockstar San Diego was building. Then came Midnight Club 3 Dub Edition in
yeah.
2005. Now, this was my first experience with the series. I never
Why did they call it Dub Edition? I thought that was like a expansion on the game, like a Need for Speed, Need for Speed Most Wanted. You had the original Need for Speed Most Wanted, and then you had the Need for Speed Most Wanted Black Edition, which added more stuff. I don't know what it added because whenever I play Most Wanted, it has always been the Black Edition. But this one is straight up the 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 game itself is Dub Edition. Like why did they name it that way?
played the first 2 Midnight Club games, so Dub Edition was my introduction to this world, and what an introduction it was. For the third entry, Rockstar San Diego partnered with Dub Magazine, a publication that was basically
Oh,
the real life
okay.
authority on the car culture that the Midnight Club series was inspired by. Dub was
Yeah, so that's
heavily
probably
involved in the
why.
development process, and that collaboration helped the game to achieve one of the most in depth vehicle customization systems of its era. You could modify your rides visually and mechanically, with gameplay affecting upgrades that kept even weaker cars viable throughout the game. And the customization in this game was absurd for 2005. Especially when compared to other racing games of the era, I remember spending a ridiculous amount of time just messing around in the garage. You could tweak your paint job, throw on new rims, adjust the body kit, upgrade the engine, and the car actually felt different afterwards. I know this
Mm.
sounds pretty typical today, but back then it really wasn't. You could feel the difference of your upgrades on the road, and that kept you coming back to the garage over and over again. And for the first time in the series, Midnight Club 3 featured officially licensed vehicles, which was a huge deal for the car enthusiast in the
Oh,
fan
that was the
base.
first time.
There were many different vehicle classes this time around, including muscle cars, classics, tuners, SUVs, and more. Each class had its own pros, cons, and unlockable special abilities. There were even in-game groups dedicated to each vehicle class. New race types were added too, including unordered races where you could hit checkpoints in any sequence, plus autocross, track, and rush modes with their own twists. Arcade mode got paint and tag modes with online support, adding even more variety. And the game featured 3 new cities: San Diego, Atlanta, and Detroit, each chosen for their relevance to the real-world US car scene. I remember Atlanta being my favorite, which is funny because Atlanta is probably one of my least favorite cities in the US today, so sorry if you're from Atlanta, but your guys' traffic sucks. And then you could visit Detroit in the snow, which was a completely different vibe. You could just slide into everything completely out of control, and somehow that was half of the fun. Just cruising around those cities with no objective, messing with the hydraulics on an SUV, or drifting the entire freeway loop, that was peak gaming for me as a kid. Reviews were mostly stellar. Some critics took issue with the decreased difficulty compared to Midnight Club 2 and occasional frame rate drops, but the extensive customization, heightened sense of speed, and polished new features won over the vast majority of reviewers. Sales reflected that. 1.6 million copies on PS2 and a staggering 3.66 million on PSP, which showed just how well the
Nice.
game translated to portable play. The series was clearly on an upward trajectory, but something odd was about to happen at Rockstar San Diego. Can you guess what it was? While you guess, a quick word
Layoffs.
from today's sponsor, Snacksy. Snacksy is a mobile app powered by Aniba, the global gaming marketplace, and it rewards you for playing games. You simply open the app, browse through game discovery, choose a game that you enjoy, complete tasks, earn coins, and then redeem those coins for real rewards. PayPal cash outs, Amazon, Netflix, Uber Eats, PlayStation, Xbox, Steam, there's a huge range of options. The concept is straightforward. Game publishers pay to acquire new players, and Snacksy shares that revenue with you. You play, they pay. If you use my link in the description, you'll receive a $10 sign-up bonus just for getting started. That gives you a strong head start
I do
towards your
not
first
trust
cash
this
out.
at all.
So click the link in the description to claim your bonus. Just make sure to open it on mobile.
When I was a dumb kid, bro, I used to go go on these apps that, oh, you can earn money, blah blah blah. I bro, I never got a cent from those things, bro. Not even a single cent, bro. Because they'll do those things of, oh, you need to make a certain amount before you can cash out. And here's the thing, you are never gonna make that amount because they slow it down extremely as you go on. Right? Don't fall for those things, it's a waste of time. Like, so remember, I do not trust that. I do not trust it at all.
It's right there at the top of the description, so check it out, and thanks again to Snacksy
Sounds
for
like a scam to
sponsoring this
me.
video. Before the next Midnight Club, Rockstar San Diego was assigned to what might be the most perplexing title in Rockstar's entire catalog. Rockstar Games presents Table Tennis. Yes, that's a real game. It
Why?
released on May 23rd, 2006, and while the concept was bizarre coming from the studio behind GTA, the game actually served a very important purpose. It was the first title to use Rage, the Rockstar Advantage game
Oh,
engine, which was developed by the San Diego team. Rage would go on to power nearly every blockbuster Rockstar title after that, including the GTA and Red Dead series. The game itself was
imagine, bro.
genuinely
Table tennis to GTA.
good, and it's still considered the best table tennis game ever made. But its real
Okay, I'll
legacy
try
was
it then.
proving that Rage was ready for prime time. This isn't super important for the video, but I thought it was interesting to throw out there. Midnight
Yeah,
Club
it is
Los
interesting.
Angeles was the first and only entry in the series to hit PS3 and Xbox 360, and it was built on that same Rage engine. The jump to current
Mm.
gen hardware at the time allowed for some impressive new features. Dynamic weather was introduced, and it actually impacted gameplay.
Ooh, that looks
Rain
good.
decreased your car's traction, and traffic patterns changed depending on the time of day. Loading screens were the
For
shortest the
for the
series
time,
had ever
that looks
seen,
great.
a new leveling system with reputation points was added, and police could now appear in any race instead of just certain scripted ones. Rather than spreading the game across multiple cities, Rockstar San Diego opted to build one huge, detailed map of Los Angeles. There were 60 collectibles scattered across it, and you could race with up to 16 players online. A race editor let you create
Nice.
your own events, and the game utilized the Rockstar Social Club for sharing and tracking. There was a lot of GTA DNA in this game, and you could really feel the influence of Rockstar's flagship series bleeding into the racing formula. And this game had a hold on me that's hard to overstate. The way that the neon signs reflected off of the wet roads after a rainstorm, combined with the absurdly good soundtrack, so good in fact that I literally added it to my radio in Euro Truck Simulator 2. I know, what a loser, is a core childhood gaming memory for me. The game's interpretation
Wait,
of
wait, wait, wait. I just learned something new. You can add your own music to the radio in American truck. I need to do that, bro. I need to do that.
LA felt alive in a way that racing games at the time didn't ever manage to pull off. And don't even get me started on the pink slip races, where if you lose your car. A level of brutality
Oof.
that, again, you don't really see too often in other racing games. Anyways,
Yeah.
critics felt that it was a strong entry. For some, it was the pinnacle of the series, while others thought it wasn't breaking enough new ground. The difficulty was also a sticking point for a few reviewers, but commercially, it was by far the best performing Midnight Club game ever. It sold 2.5 million copies on PS3 and 2.4 million on Xbox 360 over its lifetime, with a subsequent PSP port moving just under a million units. The franchise
Mm.
was at its absolute peak in terms of sales. By any reasonable measure, you'd expect a sequel to be a given. Instead, what happened next was the beginning of the end. You would think that
Nah.
releasing the best selling entry in your studio's signature franchise would be celebrated. Instead,
Yeah.
most of the team at Rockstar San Diego were handed pink slips. On January 7th, 2010, an anonymous letter written
Wow,
by
what a
the
joke.
wives of Rockstar San Diego was published online, detailing the horrific working conditions at the studio. It described severe crunch, decreasing benefits including medical coverage, overtime pay cuts, and a generally toxic environment. Days later, on January 11th, Engadget published interviews with former employees that painted an even bleaker picture. They detailed the aftermath of Midnight Club LA's release. Quote, Jay Panek and Mark Garone, people who were at the company for over 10 years, were fired in 2009 after the completion of Midnight Club LA. Other major people quit after they lost hope in the company after the handling of Midnight Club LA and didn't want to work on Red Dead Redemption. And the frustrating part is that
Yeah.
it wasn't like the series was underperforming. According to those same former employees, Midnight
Yeah, I
Club,
would leave
quote, was the
too after
second
such
highest moneymaker
abuse.
for Rockstar at the time. The problem wasn't the games, it was the people calling the shots from across the country. Former staff described a
Yeah, that's so ridiculous, bro. Literally the second most profitable game in all your companies, bro. And you're treating them this terribly. Like, come on.
culture where, quote, anyone from the New York office is feared because people in the San Diego office know that they are unstable and needy. In other words, if a comment comes from a person from New York, it's a mandate that needs to be immediately addressed regardless of previous priorities. The
Bro,
San Diego
being
team
run
was
by
being run into
babies.
the ground by leadership that never seemed satisfied, no matter how well their games sold. In the end, the Midnight Club team was completely dismantled. Rockstar San Diego was redirected to work on Red Dead Redemption, a project that was obviously a massive commercial success. But it came at the cost of the studio's identity. The people who built the Midnight Club franchise from the ground up were either fired, quit, or reassigned, and the series was left behind without anyone to champion it. Since Midnight Club Los Angeles in 2008, the franchise has been completely silent. Over 15 years without a single new entry, remaster, or even a re-release. The closest thing to an acknowledgement came in January of 2022 when a Take-Two executive briefly mentioned the Midnight Club name while listing off the company's successful franchises after their acquisition of Zynga. That's it. A passing mention and a corporate
That's
press
it.
conference. No tease, no announcement, nothing to suggest that the series will ever come back. What makes the death of Midnight Club so frustrating is that the franchise didn't fail at all. It didn't run out of ideas, it didn't get stale, and it didn't lose its audience. The last game in the series was the most commercially successful one they've ever made. The studio behind it was generating massive revenue for Rockstar. But none of that mattered to the executives at Rockstar New York, who viewed San Diego as a studio that needed to constantly prove that it was worth keeping around. Once Red Dead Redemption
So
shipped and became a
ridiculous.
phenomenon, the calculus became pretty simple from a corporate perspective. Why spend time and resources on a mid tier racing franchise when you could funnel that manpower into another blockbuster open world game? And as Rockstar's development philosophy shifted increasingly towards fewer, bigger, more expensive titles, there just wasn't room in the pipeline for something like Midnight Club anymore. Today, Rockstar San Diego functions more as a support studio, contributing to larger projects rather than leading their own. The days of them spearheading a franchise from start to finish are long gone, and that shift in role pretty much guarantees that a new Midnight Club isn't coming anytime soon, if ever. The franchise is a casualty
Yeah,
of
never
Rockstar's
getting anyone.
evolution into a company that only makes massive, decade spanning productions like GTA and Red Dead. And it's a shame because Midnight Club was ahead of its time in a lot of ways. Open world racing with real consequences, deep customization, and a sense of speed that a lot of modern racers still struggle to match. But that's what happened, and unless something drastic changes at Rockstar and they rework their entire new business model, Midnight Club is going to stay exactly where it's been for the last 15 years, parked in a garage collecting dust. Did you ever play any of the Midnight Club games? Do you have fond memories of racing
Nope,
through the streets
but
of
I
LA or
will
Tokyo?
soon.
Let me know in the comments.
Well, I
If you
don't know
enjoyed
about
this
soon,
video,
but yeah,
consider
I'll play
liking
them.
and subscribing to the channel, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.
Thanks, great video. So sad to hear this. I wish they would have continued the series, but great. Never allowed it. At least it died a hero and didn't stay around long enough to become the villain. Yeah, that's definitely true. Need for Speed. Midnight Club Dub Edition on my PSP always played when I was supposed to be asleep. Yeah, I played the other games too when I was supposed to be asleep. I can relate. Midnight Club 2 was something else. That cover art, yeah, the cover art was so good.